Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, I'll be taking a look at Jaques Tardi's Farewell Brindavoine, I believe is how it's pronounced. This is a really interesting release from Fantagraphics. I've been reading, going through and getting a lot of their Jaques Tardi stuff. This is an earlier piece by him, and I really like his art better earlier, his earlier stuff. This one was published between 1972 and 1973, and it says in this little short piece at the front that the two stories in here are from, it seems like it's from a larger series of things he did that had strange, like shorter stories with strange images. I'm not quite sure, but sets up that this is a more surrealistic piece. Really love right out the gate flipping open to see the art. I'm used to Tardi's, but more recent stuff that's a little bit more like gridded out and the camera is less bouncy. It's always in black and white. So to immediately turn and see like this big, beautifully colored, kind of more playful page layout thing really surprised me. I mean, I like Tardi doing what Tardi does, but I really like the look of this. The colors are beautiful. The art's beautiful. It's there's a few artists that jump out like that seem tangential to this, I guess. Not someone that I don't know the influence chain, but Jordi Bernet is someone that jumped to mind. And then Tim Sale, like looking at Tim Sale's work and the way that that stuff's often colored, I imagine that he was looking at this early Tardi stuff, but really beautiful art throughout. The coloring too. I can't get over the hand coloring in this. The palette is really nice. So this is the Brindavoine character, who's the titular character. He's a photographer, and here you can see him photographing a very Gustav Klimt model that he's brought into the studio there. But the drawing, like even the design of having this weird little Art Nouveau like overhang piece stick out, the switch to the lighter bathroom. I don't know. I just really like the look of this. The story in this one is a bit strange. So the majority of what I want to show off is just the awesome art in here. Like here we get this big port being drawn. I think there's some really wonderful imagery in there. Having this big obelisk, set of obelisks is really beautiful. In sequences like this, you can see the Hugo Pratt, where you get the plane flight and the action. I think the action in this is really nice. And I think, I don't think Tardi's using any camera angles he would normally use. Maybe this is a little more dynamic than some of the later work would use. I think a lot of it just has to do with the paneling and the layout of the panels make it more exciting. Also, the color, I just really like his work colored. This is a gigantic, beautiful building, and in the back of the book, they claim that it actually exists, the Iron City. But I don't know. That seems pretty unlikely to me. It's quite a beautiful thing, though. And the more fantastical stuff, like seeing things like this, you see what Tardi's capable of, let loose to be more imaginative, and most of his work just stays grounded in the noir or the real world, World War One, World War Two type of topics. But when you're getting wild imagery like this, it's hard not to like lament that there's not more of it. I don't know, maybe there is a ton of this out there that they haven't translated, but I would love to see more of this Tardi in this mode with the color, with the more surreal imagery, completely wild stuff. But you can see here he's in the middle of a dream. This almost reminds me of some of Guido Crepau's more dream state type of imagery and compositions. And then Brindavoine meets this totally strange character here. Again, really different than anything else I've ever seen from Tardi, going so far into the realm of the fantastical and the science fiction here. But I really enjoy this character. You can see more of the like Gustav Klimt kind of Art Nouveau imagery in the background here. Again, you can see that kind of Tim Sale vibe to everything. Like I imagine he must have been looking at a lot of Jaques Tardi if he would have had access to it. This old lady here that shows up in many different places is the Olga Vogel saying she seems to be kind of the bad guy in this surreal adventure that Brindavoine's having. They get into a big old dirigible here. Again, a really, really lovely image. Beautiful composition with so much of this being taken up. And then, of course, that has to come down. Dirigibles all must light on fire and fall. And you get this really beautiful scene where it's coming and crashing down into the ocean. A lot of what Tardi's doing here with the crazy line work to show the waves in this panel, I think, is particularly nice. This is a little more standard, but I think a really lovely composition as well. Then at the end, there's this piece here where I'm assuming this is like a very, very mean-spirited self-portrait, but this seems to be something that was done for the collection or done later for some collection. This is, yeah, oh no, it's referring to something else. But here, I'm assuming this is supposed to be Tardi, and he's talking about the story itself. He's commenting on it almost like an afterword by the artist. And then he says here, the Iron City, the marvelous metal structures in ruins today really existed. So I haven't had a chance to look that up, but supposedly that thing actually really existed. He says that this is based on the stories of someone that he knew in a hospital, like a military hospital, I think. So my guess, the best I can tell, is that Tardi actually was involved in a war, and that's where his extreme justified hatred for it comes from. You know, like obviously he has experienced how awful it was and is justified in that like focus for his artwork. And you have him talking about that in here, that these are stories that he heard, and it sounds to me like it was something the guy was telling him while he was hallucinating a little bit. And then the second story in here has a much more realistic tone to it. The art's a little, at least the coloring's a little bit different. It feels a little more like it's trying to be grounded in realism, but I think what this is the attempt to tell the true story of the soldier, whereas this is more like his babble that he was talking about when he was on drugs in the hospital. So I think that's what this second story is. Equally beautiful art, some really fun page layouts in here as well, but it does feel a little bit less fantastical, a little bit more grounded, and a little bit more in line with what you would normally see from Tardi, where there's this real focus on the place and saturating the details of the place into the artwork. And that's really what you get here. So I think that's what this second story is and why it has that shift. It also looks like it may have been done a little bit later, like he came back to this. Yeah, this says Tardi 10. So this was done in 2010 maybe as a follow-up piece. It's hard to tell because this one's not dated. But I think these are both tacked on to the end much, much later. And I really, really enjoyed this final panel as well, where they have this big figure of Christ here. And after all these guys have been in war and killing and having this like little battle sequence, and he's shouting assholes, you have this big figure of Christ there kind of damning them and judging them all. So really, really enjoyable. Another great Tardi book. Like I said, really enjoying going through like the library that Fantagraphics puts out. Obviously, Tardi's been working in comics for a very long time. I hope there's more stuff like this out there that Fantagraphics publishes, because I really, really enjoyed this. But I like all of his work, and I'll continue to be getting anything from the library that I can get my hands on.
standa heitir Yggdrasill Hárbáð mareisinn hvíta ári Þaðan kom að var þær síðala falla stendre í fígret Urðarbrunni Veit ég standa heitir Yggdrasill Hárbáð mareisinn